keto sourdough, the one that you've been looking for and craving, isn't keto sourdough at all. Starting today, I'll show you the 5 mistakes almost every keto baker makes. Welcome to the Keto Baking Mechanic. Hi, I'm Shari MAC. What does it really take to eat keto bread that's actually sourdough? It's not just about eating keto bread. It's about eating keto bread that's real sourdough. And there's a world of difference between the two. By the end of this video, you'll be able to spot what I call the faux doughs in seconds, whether it's a keto sourdough bread recipe online or on an ingredient list on the packaging of a grocery store keto sourdough loaf. You'll spot it in seconds when this video is finished. So, there are 5 mistakes standing between you and access to all the health benefits that real sourdough delivers, the ones scientists have identified in their studies. I'll go into how you can get access to the health benefits at the end of the video. Let's talk about the mistakes first. The first mistake is what I call all crust, no substance faux dough. These are keto breads that look like sourdough because they've been baked in a Dutch oven, or they're shaped into a round or oval loaf, a boule or batard, or they've been scored on top like cut to expand during baking so that they develop this ear so that they look like traditional sourdough. These keto breads can look exactly like sourdough in videos and in photos, but sourdough was never about what's on the outside. It's about what's in the inside, what's alive on the inside. A costume is still a costume. The second mistake are flavor fakery faux doughs. Flavor fakeries are fake keto sourdough breads. Some bakers add a tangy ingredient to their keto dough, like apple cider vinegar, lemon juice, buttermilk powder, yogurt, or sour cream. The ingredient gives the keto bread a tangy taste that's like sourdough, and then they call it keto sourdough. But it isn't. It's a keto bread with a tangy taste. It may be keto, maybe low in carbs, it's probably tasty, but it ain't real sourdough. Baking these flavor fakeries is an easy mistake to spot in recipes, but the next mistake is trickery because the process actually mimics sourdough fermentation. I call the third mistake fermentation faux dough. I've seen keto bakers make a sourdough starter with almond flour in a jar, feeding it a tablespoon of more almond flour and water every day. Yes, this starter may develop gas pockets, even smell pleasantly fermented, but fermentation alone doesn't make something sourdough. That's because fermenting almond flour isn't built on a foundation of lactobacillus cultures and wild yeast working in harmony, the exact partnership real sourdough depends upon. And almond flour doesn't carry the starch those cultures need to feed on. So how do these bakers compensate for the lack of real sourdough activity in their almond flour sourdough starter? Some bakers add instant yeast to make the almond flour starter grow quickly and overflow the jar to look exactly like a traditional wheat-based starter. But fermented almond flour with instant yeast doesn't make it sourdough. That's simply low-carb flour undergoing instant yeast activity, a single strain leavening. Without the wild yeast and the lactic acid bacteria partnership that defines real sourdough, it ain't sourdough. Which takes us to the fourth mistake. And this one isn't a lack of sourdough education, and it's not just someone being naive about it or just making an honest mistake. I call this mistake the lab coat lie. These are keto sourdoughs that have a very specific added ingredient to taste like real sourdough. Something more sophisticated than apple cider vinegar or yogurt. It's someone in a lab, like a food lab technician, deliberately manufacturing the tangy flavor of sourdough without the fermentation itself. Real sourdough turns tangy because lactic acid bacteria, those cultures, naturally produce lactic acid during fermentation that gives real sourdough that identifiable tangy taste. Some commercial manufacturers and even some keto recipes you'll see online add liquid lactic acid directly to the dough, and then they call the dough keto sourdough. Yes, the molecule is the same. The process isn't. Fermentation creates lactic acid. Adding liquid lactic acid to the dough doesn't create fermentation. It's the fermentation part that produces the lactic acid that matters for real sourdough. This is not a keto bread ingredient list from a store-bought loaf, but I wanted to point out that in the USA, sourdough bread does not have a standard of identity. Any bread can be called sourdough. Authentic sourdough will list an ingredient always that says sourdough culture or sourdough starter or even sour culture. The fifth mistake is what I call the sauerkraut shortcut faux dough. Some bakers add sauerkraut juice to keto bread dough because it contains lactic acid bacteria. Sounds confusing, right? The microbes are the same from the same broad family found in sourdough cultures, but having lactic acid bacteria doesn't automatically make it sourdough. We just covered that in mistake number 4. Sauerkraut juice comes from fermenting cabbage with salt, its own unique ecosystem, entirely different than sourdough's cultures and wild yeast working together with keto flours and with a specific kind of water. Sauerkraut juice can make bread taste more sour or tangy. It doesn't make it sourdough. So, 5 mistakes, 5 different reasons, and they all trace back to one missing thing. It's authentic sourdough fermentation. None of them were fermented with a true living sourdough culture doing what only a true living culture could do. An authentic keto sourdough must begin with a colony of cultures and wild yeast we already talked about, trained to thrive through a keto feeding protocol with the right low-carb flours and with a specific kind of water. When you feed a real keto sourdough starter daily and use it to bake keto sourdough bread, those organisms slowly transform the dough. They create gas so the bread rises. They produce acids that give sourdough its signature tang, aroma, texture. They add the 5th taste sensation called umami, roundness and depth of flavor. And that same living process is what gives keto sourdough all of its health benefits. That's the whole story. A living community of cultures and wild yeast working together over time. Not a flavoring, not a shortcut, no added liquid, no added juice, not a fancy crust, not the shape of the dough. It's a magnificent living process taking place in the dough. A 2008 study published in LWT, Food Science and Technology, found that wild yeast and lactic acid bacteria actually stimulate each other's growth during fermentation, each one producing what the other one needs to thrive, like a marriage. And that's just one of the growing bodies of studies confirming the same thing. Real sourdough isn't one organism doing the work, it's a partnership. At my company, Sinless Sourdough, this is the standard I built my keto dehydrated starters to meet. My keto starters have been formulated to thrive under a keto feeding protocol and have been scientifically third-party tested and authenticated as real sourdough. I also have created 2 video training courses for beginners and advanced to teach you exactly how to bake real keto sourdough at home, authentic keto sourdough. Check out my YouTube store. And at the beginning of this video, I promise to give you access to all of the health benefits associated with real keto sourdough. You can get my guide called Eat Bread, Lose Weight, the 13 Secrets for free. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment. In the next video, I'll show you what happened when I tracked my own blood sugar for 7 days eating real keto sourdough, sinless sourdough, before and after, every single day. Your kitchen, your rules. My love of keto sourdough bread, I get to share with you. Come back to my table, my dear friend. I'll see you then.